Every evening, Mark would watch his wife, Clara, pull into the driveway. Her silver sedan would glide to a stop, and she'd emerge, always alone. For months, he'd noticed her trips. She'd leave early in the morning, sometimes before the sun was up, and return late, her car covered in the dust of California highways. When he asked where she went, she'd just smile and say, "Just driving, clearing my head." Mark trusted his wife, but the secrecy was starting to wear on him. Miles were racking up on the car, and she always seemed tired, yet strangely fulfilled. What was she doing out there on those long, lonely roads? The passenger seat was always empty, or so it seemed. One weekend, while Clara was out on one of her mysterious drives, Mark decided to do some digging. He wasn't proud of it, but his curiosity had become an obsession. He started by checking their shared bank account, expecting to find strange charges from remote motels or cafes. But there was nothing. Just gas station receipts from various small towns along the coast and inland. No clues there. He then looked through her phone records. Lots of calls, but they were all to numbers he recognized: her sister, her mom, her best friend. Nothing suspicious. He felt a pang of guilt. Was he being paranoid? Maybe she really was just driving to clear her head. After all, her job as a graphic designer could be stressful. Maybe this was her way of decompressing. He tried to let it go, to trust the woman he loved. But a small, nagging voice in the back of his mind just wouldn't be quiet. The following week, the mystery deepened. Mark came home from work early one day to find a small, beautifully wrapped gift on his pillow. Inside was a handcrafted leather wallet, the kind he'd been admiring for months but never bought. The attached note from Clara read, "Just because. Love you." The gesture was sweet, but it also fueled his suspicion. Where did she get the money for this? They were on a tight budget, saving for a down payment on a house. This wallet wasn't cheap. He decided that evening he had to confront her, gently. When she returned, looking weary but with that same serene smile, he sat her down on the sofa. He held her hand and told her he was worried. He mentioned the long drives, the secrecy, the expensive gift. Clara listened patiently, her expression unreadable. When he finished, she took a deep breath. "Mark," she said softly, "I know this has been confusing for you. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I wanted it to be a surprise." She then stood up and walked to her car keys hanging by the door. "Come with me," she said. "It's time you saw what I've been doing." Mark's heart pounded in his chest. This was it. The moment of truth. He followed her out to the car, his mind racing with a dozen different scenarios, none of them good. She opened the passenger door for him, and as he sat down, he noticed a faint, pleasant smell he couldn't quite place. It smelled like dog. And something else, something clean, almost like disinfectant. Clara got into the driver's seat, started the car, and they pulled out of the driveway, heading north on the Pacific Coast Highway. They drove for nearly an hour, the setting sun painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink. They turned off the main highway onto a series of smaller, winding country roads until they finally pulled up to a large, gated property. A sign at the entrance read "Paws and Freedom Rescue." It was an animal shelter, but it looked different from any Mark had ever seen. It was sprawling and green, with large, open-air enclosures instead of small cages. As Clara drove through the gates, a chorus of happy barks erupted. Dogs of all shapes and sizes ran to the fences, their tails wagging furiously. A woman in overalls came out to greet them, a wide smile on her face. "Clara, you're back. Did you bring him?" Clara smiled and nodded toward the back of her car. Mark was completely bewildered. Clara got out, opened the trunk, and pulled out a large, empty animal carrier. "Mark," she began, her eyes shining with tears, "this is what I've been doing." She explained that for the past 6 months, she'd been volunteering as a transport driver for Paws and Freedom. The shelter specialized in rescuing dogs from high-kill shelters across the state, many of which were in remote, underfunded areas. Her long drives weren't aimless. They were rescue missions. She would drive for hours to pick up dogs scheduled for euthanasia and bring them back to the safety of this no-kill sanctuary. The empty passenger seat wasn't empty at all. It was reserved for scared, lonely animals on their journey to a new life. The woman in overalls, whose name was Maria, the shelter's founder, came over and gave Clara a hug. "Your wife is a hero," she told Mark. "She's personally saved over 50 dogs in the last 6 months. She drives hundreds of miles, often on her own dime, without ever asking for a thing in return." Mark was speechless. He looked at his wife, who was now kneeling by a fence, letting a small terrier lick her face. This was her secret. Not an affair, not a hidden life, but an act of incredible compassion. He felt a wave of shame for his suspicions, followed by an overwhelming sense of pride and love. He walked over to her and wrapped his arms around her. "Why didn't you just tell me?" he whispered. Clara looked up at him, her face full of emotion. "At first, I didn't know if I could handle it. It's emotionally draining. Seeing the conditions in some of those places, it's heartbreaking. I didn't want to bring that sadness home to you," she continued, "and then it became my thing. My own little secret mission. And I started a side hustle, using my design skills to create websites for small businesses I met in those towns. That's how I paid for the gas and for your wallet. I was saving the rest to surprise you, to show you that we could contribute to our house fund and I could still do this." She pointed to a brand new, larger transport van parked near the main building. "I was saving up to help the shelter buy that. They just got it last week." Mark felt like the smallest man in the world. While he was home nursing his suspicions, his wife was out on the road, single-handedly changing the world for these animals. She wasn't just driving, she was delivering hope. The empty seat was a symbol not of absence, but of a promise of a safe ride to a new beginning. That evening, on the drive home, the car was quiet, but it was a comfortable, understanding silence. Mark reached over and took Clara's hand. "I want to help," he said. "Let me be your co-pilot." Clara squeezed his hand, a tear of joy rolling down her cheek. From that day on, the passenger seat was no longer a mystery. Sometimes Mark filled it, joining her on those long drives. But they both knew that even when he wasn't there, the seat was never truly empty. It was always full of hope, courage, and the quiet promise of a second chance, all thanks to the woman behind the wheel. Thank you so much for watching. This story is a beautiful reminder that sometimes, the things we don't understand about the people we love are the very things that make them extraordinary. If you were touched by this story, please hit that like button and subscribe for more heartwarming content. And if you're ever in a position to help an animal in need, whether by adopting, donating, or volunteering, please do. You could be someone's Clara. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next video.